We're going to turn to Jack DeGoia, the president of Georgetown University, who will speak about university research in the age of COVID. Thank you very much for joining us via Zoom.
Thank you very much. Thank you. It's an honor to join you and to offer these brief reflections on university research in the age of COVID. And I'm deeply appreciative of the opportunity to have listened to so many outstanding presentations. In my reflections, I'll focus on two themes. First, a possibility emerging from the experience of these past 24 months for a focus on ever more challenging problems. And second, on the importance of drawing upon resources that can support and strengthen our people who are taking on these challenges. I think we can count on an extraordinary global infrastructure in support of understanding some of the disruptions and dislocations that we have discussed over these 2 days, a global research infrastructure. As Kathleen McCartney shared in her presentation yesterday morning, it's nothing short of astonishing how much we already know about the impact of the pandemic on psychosocial development of children and adolescents. And as we have learned from all other presentations, it's equally astonishing how much we have learned about other domains. And this is an extraordinary infrastructure that continues to strengthen. The convergence of new forces, globalization, climate change, growing inequity, new technologies, has required the development of new approaches to research, new ways of organizing research, new structures. Jeff Sachs is responsible for the development of one such example, the Earth Institute at Columbia. Our colleagues at UNESCO and UNICEF have supported other types of approaches that push beyond traditional disciplines and seek to connect methods and approaches in new combinations. Adam's presentation is the most powerful example could imagine of a demonstration of this kind of commitment to enriching the nature of research. Over the past decade, the National Academy of Sciences has proposed the concept convergence science to capture this dynamic that I think we all know well. I think we should have some confidence that universities will respond to the challenges of understanding exceptionally well. Universities will be part of this strengthening infrastructure, primarily because the university is built on the centrality of knowledge. That is the core of our identity and purpose. Three elements constitute the university. First is formation. We provide a context for the formation of young people. That is, along with the knowledge that becomes transmitted through students' coursework and faculty engagement, we value the importance that all students explore and develop the intellectual, moral, social, spiritual, and civic dimensions of their selves. Second element is inquiry. We support the scholarship and research of our faculty. In essence, we are contributing to the discovery and construction of knowledge, as well as establishing a home for epistemic communities that establish the conditions for truth. And third is the emphasis for every university on contributing to the common good. We contribute to the common good of the communities in which we participate. Common good, there's a good we can achieve together that we could never hope to achieve alone. These three elements, formation, inquiry, common good, constitute the very idea of the university. Inquiry, scholarship and research, is the work that holds these elements together and differentiates the university from other places where formation occurs, other institutions that also contribute to the common good. The work of inquiry has been on display throughout the pandemic. We have seen examples of this astonishing work here together in the presentations of our colleagues over these 2 days. The work of inquiry has, in these just past times, enabled an extraordinary explosion of knowledge, actions, treatments, insights, an awesome display of inquiry. Significantly, universities have been and now are at the forefront of the effort. And while the work of inquiry focused on pandemic particulars is ongoing, it continues also into the work of how we understand what we are doing and what needs to be done. Analyses, treatments, policies have emerged from our universities, collaborating in public with one another, with the private sector, with municipal, state, and federal governments. The emphasis has been, by and large, on following the science. And this is all the work of inquiry. And now, I think we must ask, given what we have learned and are learning about inquiry during this pandemic, can this learning be applied elsewhere? As we move forward, can we apply our learning to so-called wicked problems? How can we characterize wicked problems? It's a term that captures a range of problems that, whether by definition, interpretation, inability to confront, are defined as wicked. Here's how the appellation was originally described and displayed. Horst Riddle and Melvin Weber, from the abstract of their 1973 paper introducing this concept. And they identified 10 characteristics of wicked problem. Others have used different terms to describe this idea. Russell Ackoff, writing in 1974, every problem interacts with other problems and is therefore part of a set of interrelated problems, a system of problems. I choose to call such a system a mess. Ackoff used a different term than Riddle and Weber. Instead of wicked problems, he described them as social messes. Well, is this helpful? Can this characterization of wicked problems, of social messes, can it enrich our capacity to expand, enrich, deepen our work of inquiry? Does this concept help to explain why some of the problems that we have discussed together over these 2 days, why some of them seem so intractable? Why are some of the issues we have discussed so intractable? Can this concept enrich our understanding of the nature of inquiry? These are challenges that universities in their inquiry roles take on as a matter of course. What is problematical is examined as part of the work of the university. I believe some of what we have learned through these past 24 months in response to the pandemic has strengthened the capabilities and capacities of our universities to be able to imagine taking on these ever bigger problems. I wish to close with a reflection on those who do the work, those members of our universities, our faculties, our scholars, our graduate students, our postdocs, increasingly undergraduates, those who engage in inquiry, those who will be taking on these ever more challenging problems. As we have strengthened our universities, are there steps we can take in support of our people? And a convening like this, held in this location, opens up the possibility of a discourse drawing upon more resources, spiritual and moral resources, that might be more challenging to explore in our more typical academic conferences. So I speak to you from my office, from the oldest Catholic and Jesuit university in the United States, and I wish to share one element of a 500-year-old tradition that animates our community. Early in the interview that perhaps more than any introduced to the world the way of proceeding of Pope Francis, Father Antonio Spadaro asked the Holy Father the following question: what does it mean for a Jesuit to be elected Pope? What element of Ignatian spirituality helps you live your ministry? And Pope Francis responded with the word discernment. He said, and I quote, "Discernment is one of the things that worked inside St. Ignatius. For him, it is an instrument of struggle in order to know the Lord and to follow him more closely." Close quote. Little background: St. Ignatius is the founder of the Jesuits. Discernment is a transformative practice outlined in the Spiritual Exercises, a guidebook that St. Ignatius wrote for the practice of discernment. For Ignatius, we must pay attention to our interiority, with special attention to the feelings, to the affect that we are experiencing, movements within us. For Ignatius, the beginning of his insight came in convalescence from an injury suffered in battle. He was a courtier whose leg had been shattered when hit by a cannonball. More than his leg, his entire world was shattered. His self-identity, one who, in his words from his autobiography, his chief delight was in the exercise of arms with a great and vain desire to gain honor. And that identity, following the injury, was hard to sustain, but not without trying. In convalescence, he asked for books that would feed this identity, requesting tales of chivalry. With none to be found, he was limited to two sacred texts: A Life of Christ and a book of the lives of the saints. What emerges in the interiority of this young man is an experience that might have resonance with each of us. There were interior movements that brought him joy, and there were interior movements that brought sadness, a heaviness, even dread. He gave us words that describe these contrary interior movements: consolation and desolation. In his convalescence, when he was reflecting on reading sacred literature and allowing his imagination to flow, consolation. When he reflected on his life as a courtier, desolation. For Ignatius, we are not to ignore or reject or run from these interior movements. We are to try to interpret them. What are they telling us? What could they mean? Where are they leading us? If they are leading us toward consolation, then they can be trusted, and we need to reflect with them. And if on the contrary, they need to be understood, resisted. What is this work of interpreting these feelings? This is discernment. Ignatius encourages careful attention to our interiority, especially to the affect we experience. One more term. The word is sentir, an Ignatian word that is difficult to define. Here is a passage from Father Brian O'Leary. Sentir is a key concept for Ignatius. It defies any efforts to force it into either an intellectual or an affective category. It successfully spans both. Hence the difficulty of translating it by any single word. Phrases like have a felt understanding of a truth, or to have an experiential and affective knowledge of a person or a thing. are awkward, but they are often necessary circumlocutions to bring out the rich spiritual meaning of the original. There is a powerful idea at work here that we can attain felt knowledge, knowledge that we just know in the deepest parts of our being is true. And we have both our intellect and we have this practice of discerning the affect that we each experience in our interiorities. Ignatius asks us to privilege the significance of our inner lives. Colleges and universities are dedicated to the acquisition and dissemination, the discovery and construction, the interpretation and conservation of knowledge. Together, these knowledge developing activities determine the orientation of the university. Can we draw upon additional resources like those offered to us by Ignatius, discernment, consolation, sentir, to assist us and to support those who take on this work as we build upon the work of these past 24 months and seek to tackle the most complex social problems? Thank you.